Here's what I think each Bat family member's chosen D&D class would be, as well as what their relationship with the game is. Starting off with the Cape Crusader himself, Batman, he rarely plays D&D. He might have played like one game with Thomas Elliot when he was still a kid. So outside of that, the only times I can see Bruce playing D&D is either he's invited to a game by the Bat family and Alfred tells him he has to participate, or it's a team building exercise from the Justice League that Barry suggested. And in both cases, he puts such little effort into the game that someone else has to build a character for him. So that really depends on how each team sees him and what kind of class they think would best fit him. With the Justice League, it's definitely a rogue. But with the Bat family, it's a monk. But if Bruce were to ever sit down and actually try to engage with the game, I feel like his chosen class would be a ranger. Because rangers are very much a forward-thinking, planning class with favored terrain and enemy, as well as all their tracking abilities could definitely be flavored as detective work. Moving on to Dick Grayson. Now, I love the story of Robin and Batman, and a minor side story in that is where Dick is invited to play a D&D game. And though we never find out what class he plays as, he does mention putting on night vision goggles, which is something artificers have. So the first class he ever played as was probably an artificer, but I feel like Dick loves the game of D&D because it's such a collaborative thing. So whatever team he's on, he constantly tries to schedule D&D games with them. He's probably played, tested every class, and he's definitely been a DM a bunch of times. But I feel like Grayson's preferred class would definitely be a paladin. Because paladins are that perfect kind of support class. They're more than capable of handling their own shit. Dick can still participate in the fight actively while still helping out the others. Barbara Gordon. Barbara doesn't really strike me as the kind of person who plays a lot of D&D. I definitely feel like if she does play it, Dick Grayson is the one who brought her into the game. And since she's such a supportive girlfriend, I can definitely see her using technology and her high holographic setup for these D&D games to make them even more immersive. Dick doesn't really care for all the flashy stuff. He prefers the good old-fashioned pen and paper. It still looks cool as shit, so he's not gonna say no. She's probably DM'd a few games for the Birds of Prey, and she definitely prefers being a DM over a player, which is why I think her preferred class would probably be something basic like Fighter, which is still a dope-ass class, but still decently basic. Next up is Jason Todd, who's probably played as little D&D as Batman has. As a street kid, he never played D&D. I don't even think he knew what D&D was. Nightwing wasn't really a big part of the Bat family when Jason was Robin, and the Titans didn't really like him, so I don't really see him playing D&D with either team. But when Jason came back as Red Hood and dropped the whole Mafia boss thing, I could see Dick trying to invite him to Bat Family games. And when Jason shows up, he does his best to avoid classes that the Bat Family would associate with Red Hood, like fighters or barbarians. He avoids those classes like the Plague, and he tries out other classes like Wizard or Sorcerer, but he doesn't really vibe with those classes either. But during his times with the Outlaws and he's hanging out with Roy tells him about some of the Titan games, and he says that he really likes playing as a bard. Jason tries out bards, and he loves that class. So Jason Todd would play as a bard. There are more Bat family members to add to this list, but this video is getting long enough, so if you want a part 2, tell me in the comments below. And also, what class do you think each Bat family member is? Alright, sorry this took a minute, but here's part 2 of what I think every member of the Bat family's chosen D&D class would be and their relationship with the game. Starting off with one amendment from last time, Brucey Wayne. Now, I did say Batman doesn't really play D&D outside of training exercises with the Justice League and the Bat family. But Brucey Wayne, on the other hand, Brucey Wayne would absolutely get invited to a D&D charity livestream. I could totally see that happening. And with that, Bruce would actually have to, for the first time in his life, put effort into the game. This would also probably be the first time he would actually take note of Rangers being a pretty good class, at least for how he would play the game. But halfway through making the character, he figured, maybe I'm making this guy too much like Batman. And would have to more closely make a character that more resembles his Brucey Wayne persona, and that would have to be a bard. Brucey Wayne is totally the type of person to say, I rolled to seduce the dragon. Next up is Tim Drake, and Tim definitely strikes me as someone who's always wanted to play D&D, but has never really gotten the chance to. Tim has watched dozens of D&D live streams and shows. He is constantly coming up with character ideas and campaign ideas, but he's never really got a chance to use any of this knowledge until joining the Bat family. Tim would find out that Dick used to run Bat Family games of D&D when it was just him, Bruce, and Barbara. So Tim would do everything in his power to bring that tradition back and would eventually succeed. He would also constantly be taking over as DM for both the Bat Family and the Titans when Dick was not available. As for his class, since Tim is a lot like Bruce, I could totally see him playing Ranger very often. But Tim also really strikes me as a multi-classer, so I could definitely see him playing as like an Artificer Monk or a Warlock Sorcerer or a Rogue Bard. Stephanie Brown. Pre-joining the Bat family, I don't see Stephanie playing a lot of D&D, but I could definitely see Tim inviting her to a lot of games. And then sorely regretting it. Because she's shockingly good at the game, because she's amazing at picking up clues and solving puzzles. And she's constantly purposely confusing the difference between wizards and sorcerers just to piss off Tim. So I feel like her chosen class would be a sorcerer, but she'd play it like a wizard. She would never use any sorcery points and would constantly talk about spell books, even though that class has nothing to do with spell books, causing Tim to probably have an aneurysm during one of these games. Huntress Helena Bertinelli. Now, I will admit my knowledge of Helena Bertinelli is very limited. It's mostly just her appearances in Hush, No Man's Land, and Batman vs. Predator 2. And in all of those, she's very separate from the rest of the Bat family. Outside of her fling with Nightwing, the Bat family doesn't really associate with her. So I don't see her playing D&D with them at all. But if she did, her class would probably be Barbarian. But Helena Wayne, on the other hand, definitely gets invited to D&D games. Depending on how many Bat family members are still alive in her timeline, of course. They are what little family she has left, so she definitely plays with them. And since she's so much like her father, she plays a ranger. And since she's so much like her mother, she multi-classes as a rogue. There are still a few more Bat family members to cover, like Cass, Kate, Duke, and Luke. But this video is already over 3 minutes long, so if you want a part 3, tell me in the comments below. And also tell me what classes you think each Bat family member would choose if they played D&D. My throat hurts, so I can't record my motion comic. Anyways, Bat Family D&D Part 3. This honestly could be the final part because I know fuck all about Tim Fox or Bluebird. Anyways, what class does the Blood Son play in D&D? Druid or Barbarian? Hell, he might even multi-class the two, which I would not recommend. I could see Damien getting really invested in the world building of D&D, especially when it comes to the animals and wildlife. So to further pursue that, he would definitely play a Druid. But he's way too violent to not pick up Barbarian at some point. Also, in his spare time, Damien likes to draw everybody's characters based on how they describe them. And also, Nightwing's been secretly prepping Damien to take over as Dungeon Master at some point. Batwoman. Kate Kane strikes me as the kind of person who'd think D&D is really stupid and for nerds until eventually picking it up themselves and having so much fun. When it comes to classes, I could definitely see her playing a fighter subclass gunslinger just to piss off Bruce. But when she's not trying to annoy Batman, I could definitely see her playing Bloodhunter. What makes me say Bloodhunter? Fucking look at her! Signal, Duke Thomas, would definitely be brought into the game by Dick Grayson, which means his first ever class that he'd play as would be a Paladin. Assuming that Paladin would fit his personality best, Nightwing would make him a Paladin, but after trying out different classes, I feel like Duke would eventually settle on being a monk. Batwing Luke Thomas played D&D before joining the Bat family. And he only ever plays as wizards or artificers because in his words, they're the only two magic classes that actually worked for their gifts. So yeah, that's every Bat family member's chosen D&D classes. Like I said before, I know there are more members. Tim Fox, Bluebird, Carrie Kelly, Terry McGinnis, Jarro. But Terry and Carrie are non-canon, and I don't know enough about Tim Fox or Bluebird to warrant another video. So for now, those are all my thoughts on each Bat family member's D&D class. What do you guys think?